Muchas gracias a María Luz Vega.
Thank you, Maria Luz Vegas. If you're with us through streaming, I'll now hand over to Andrew Constable, who will intervene on behalf of staff interpreters, technologies, new technology challenges, and how this will affect the work of interpreters, how in the future it will affect questions of stress, exhaustion, the linkage of that with our work, what kind of training will be necessary. We have asked staff interpreters to share their thoughts with us.
Yeah. In terms of how new technologies have affected our work, a lot of you are seeing this already. If we divide up our work into different phases, you have pre-interpretation, interpretation itself, and the post-interpretation phase. Already we can see that new technologies have brought significant new tools for us with which we can provide searches, we can use glossaries, you have access to documents that sometimes you didn't have before. On the other hand, sometimes you get the documents a lot later, sometimes you don't get the printed versions. So there are two sides to the coin. But it has significantly affected how we prepare and how we research. During interpretation, we can see that there are different environments you can work in. Video remote interpreting, video conference interpreting, audio remote interpreting, audio conference interpreting. All of these different modes impact on the amount of sensory information available to us. We, of course, have the traditional face-to-face environment, working in an on-site location. Face-to-face can be added to as well with new technologies. Screens help us to see the speakers better. You have transcripts. Other aspects of the environment have changed as well. Live streaming, webcasting. Then there's the question, where are you? Are you at the venue? Are you at a hub next door? Are you at a hub on another continent? Are you at a home office, at a private office? Are you at home? Who are you with? By yourself? Just with your teammate? Or are you with a whole team? So this fundamentally impacts on the experience we have as interpreters. Afterwards, the post-interpreting phase, what we're seeing is more and more recording of interpretation. Videos can be downloaded of interpretation. Transcripts are kept with interpretation. All of this means that we're already seeing a fundamental different experience in interpreting. Before answering how I expect it to affect work in the future, I'd like to talk a bit about fatigue and stress and enjoyment, because a lot of us interpret because actually we enjoy it. In terms of fatigue and stress, in the research that I've read, there's a question that always arises. Why is it that it seems to be the case that interpreters say we feel more stressed, we feel more tired when we work in these different modes, but on the same time, the blood levels, the cortisol indicators aren't showing this? It's a difficult question, because it seems that what we're experiencing personally isn't borne out in the literature by objective indicators sometimes. But I would say this, if perhaps those physical manifestations of stress aren't showing up in the tests, perhaps it means that we are managing that stress, that we're able, through our stress management techniques, to bring about physiological changes in our bodies which make us able to deal with these aspects. That doesn't mean we're not aware of the stress. That doesn't mean the stress isn't there. But it means that we have professional mechanisms that work, fundamentally. But we could still be more tired as a result of having to deploy these mechanisms. People talk about quality. Why is it in the research that a lot of the time the quality still seems to be pretty good? Despite the fact that there's reduced sensory input. Sometimes there's less video, sometimes you can't choose the views you want. Sometimes the audio is not as good, yet sometimes the quality level is maintained. If the input is less and the output remains the same, someone somewhere is having to make up the difference. I would say the greater the difference, the more the interpreter has to work, the more tired the interpreter is going to be. This is behind the theory of what I call the distance interpreting spectrum. It is a very vast spectrum of new modes of working that we have, which are very different for the interpreter. On the one hand, a face-to-face on-site environment with a speaker who appears for 2 minutes with perfect sound, perfect video. We're located with our teammates at the same location. That's one aspect. And on the other end of the scale, you have perhaps an audio conference of some kind, telephone interpreting. Maybe the interpreter in their home, they have to do the internet connection themselves. They don't have the technical support they need. They're alone. It's another end of the scale. Without video, you don't see the speaker. You don't see the participants. There's much less sensory input. If we add to that, taking away some of the frequency response, narrowing the signal, it makes it even harder for the interpreter. That doesn't mean that the interpreter won't always strive to have the best quality, and may even sometimes achieve it. Sorry.
Could I ask you to conclude, because we have 5 minutes per group or committee?
Possible. The most important thing, though, is that the new technologies do provide opportunities. They provide they provide opportunities to take multilingualism to new frontiers, to virtual meetings, to forums. For languages of lesser diffusion, it's often hard to get qualified interpreters in remote locations. Ultimately, we all want the same thing. We want to make multilingualism a reality. We want to ensure quality interpretation, and we want to safeguard the health of interpreters, working together with researchers, with technicians, and with others. That is the way forward. AIC must be an active participant in ensuring that the change that comes is to the benefit of everyone. Thank you very much.